Hey, what is up guys? It is your boy Speed here, and today we're going to be talking about 5 meta heroes and how you can counter them. I'm going to be giving examples of other heroes that you can pick to counter pick these meta heroes. We'll be covering Phoenix, Faceless Void, Bloodseeker, Tiny, and Windranger. I swear all of these heroes I absolutely despise seeing in my games, and actually, well, besides Bloodseeker, you know, it warms my heart that my boy, after being in the trenches, the absolute dumpster, is now broken. Even gameleap certified broken. I give him the stamp, right? Not a lot of heroes get that stamp. No, I don't call a lot of heroes broken, but Bloodseeker, he's an exception. But of course, if you guys are excited for this video, you know what to do. Smash the like button. Let's see if we can get to 2,000 likes on this video. That's a good landmark, so if you see the video ain't at 2,000, you know what to do. Smash that like button until it is absolutely broken. And of course, get a gameleap sub. That's my entire sales pitch. If you're convinced, let me know in the comment section down below. I spent almost 4 years in college studying marketing, so let me know what you think. And therefore, you should sign up down below, click the link right now, and I hope to see you guys there. So our first hero is Phoenix. Phoenix is a hero that's been kind of tormenting me in my games. I feel like if my hero has even a relatively high HP pool, Sunray decimates me. Also, Egg feels near impossible to kill at level 1. After all, it's 6 auto attacks instead of 5 now, which felt like quite a big buff to the hero. Sure, they did nerf the level 12 spike, but after all, it's hard to kill at level 1, which in my opinion is probably the biggest Phoenix spike in the game, other than when he just has like level 18, a million items, and full max out abilities. So here are a couple heroes that actually counter Phoenix. The first two are pretty basic. They're ones you might actually know of already if you follow the pro scene, and that is MIRANA and SNAPFIRE. I'll also give Lina, an honorable mention, even though I'm kind of not a fan of Lina in general. But MIRANA and SNAPFIRE for the pure reason that not only do they lane relatively well against Phoenix, as they sort of can disengage from his fire spirits when they have to, they also can stun him, which is good. You know, it's just good to be able to stun a Phoenix. It's useful. I mean, that's kind of true against any hero, but most importantly, you can kill the egg. So if you're playing against Phoenix and you're playing SNAPFIRE, you want to take a point into your little shredder so that you can turn on the little shredder and kill the egg. No joke, there was a professional match that I watched, and Fly, the position 5 of Evil Geniuses, picked up a blink on SNAPFIRE just to kill the Phoenix egg, and it worked pretty well. On top of that, MIRANA does the same thing, but doesn't even need a blink, so I would say MIRANA is probably the best of this group for actually killing the egg, as you don't need a blink. It's very easy to get to the egg. However, SNAPFIRE actually does kill the egg much faster, so, you know, it kind of just depends. Next up is Jug and Morphling. Let's start off with Jug. So Juggernaut, kind of the same thing. You're good at killing the egg. In the laning stage, sure, Phoenix can snipe your healing ward with his Icarus dive, so you need to be very careful about that. But other than that, you can deal with Phoenix's chip damage, right? The hero does naturally a lot of damage in lane, especially when he hits level 3, when his fire spirit goes from 15 to 35 damage. I don't know who decided on that scaling. It just more than doubles. What is that, like 150%? I'm not going to do the math. It's like 133%. I did the math, unless I'm wrong. GG. But you can also spin to hit the egg, which is great. Right, just then and there, you can spin to hit the egg, you can spin off the fire spear, spin off the magic damage, so it's kind of just good. And finally is Morphling. In the laning stage, I think Morphling is pretty good against Phoenix, as not necessarily too early into the lane, but later on, mainly because you can get on top of the Phoenix. You can really just abuse the fact that the hero is low armor. Phoenix is very bad armor, so if you can waveform auto attack him a couple times, the hero struggles. It's like half of his health, and most importantly, you can't really kill Morphling too easily as Phoenix. You can go Vessel and mess with them, but after all, Morphling, you're not going to get bursted by a Phoenix, so that makes it a good matchup in general. A lot of position 4s can stun or burst Morphling, like Tiny or Clock, but Phoenix can't really do that, so it makes Morph good. And Morph does a lot of right clicks, so he kills the egg. And finally is last hero, just kidding, it's an item, Drums. If you're against Phoenix, buy Drums. You see the egg, you click the aura, okay? It's very good. Next up is Faceless Void. Let's talk about Faceless Void counters. This hero has been tormenting pubs. It feels like if you go into the late game and you get chrono, you die. However, you don't want that to be the case, so let's talk about a few ways you can actually prevent that. First off is TREANT. TREANT's a little bit better in the early game than rather the later game, because in the later game, you know, Void might have a Manta, he might have a BKB, so your disables become slightly less useful. But in the early game, you have living armor, so whoever gets chronoed you living armor, they take significantly less right-click damage, and you can Nature's Grasp into the chrono, so you can back up your teammate by putting down a nuke into the chrono. Also, you can overgrowth. So basically, you have 3 different ways. Even leech seed is not too bad. You have 3 different ways of saving the person in chrono, which is quite useful. And Treant is a very good scouting hero. Very, very good at scouting, right? You have the Invis talent at level 10. And because you have the Invis talent at level 10, what you can do is scout the Faceless Void, your team can jump him, and that's often how you win fights against Void. You know, if you don't want to get chronoed or you can't deal with a chrono, well, you need to kill the chrono. And then some other quick examples of save heroes that are good are Oracle, Pudge, yes Pudge, Shadow Demon, there's even OD. All these heroes can theoretically save people in chrono, which does have its value. And finally are 2 tanks. First off is Wraith King. Wraith King, because he can stun the Void and run at him, it's very good. You can build a Halberd, you can build a Blade Mail, you can build a Radiance. All of these items counter right-clicking Faceless Void, and that's good. Because what Faceless Void hates is a hero that can run around alone, run at the Faceless Void, not care about getting chronoed, and disrupt his ability to get off a good chrono. Wraith King does all of those things at the same exact time. And finally, we have Doom, because you can Doom Void. Were you hoping for something else? It doesn't exist. Well, actually, yeah. Doom gets pretty tanky, so even if you get chronoed, you can often live through it and get your Doom off anyway. Next up is Bloodseeker. So Bloodseeker has been most recently getting picked in the off lane. I have seen actually quite a bit of safe lane and position 4 and 5 Bloodseeker as well. But yeah, this hero is good. So first off, let's talk about why SNAPFIRE is pretty good against Bloodseeker. This is a very weird one. A lot of people might not have expected this. Why is SNAPFIRE good against Bloodseeker? Well, I think it's just because the hero really takes advantage of the fact that Bloodseeker has to get close to his target. Bloodseeker has an absolutely abysmal win rate against SNAPFIRE. It's probably the lowest at 44%. Kind of shocked me when I first saw it, and I'm like, why would that be the case? Why would SNAPFIRE do so well against Blood? Well, if Blood's trying to man up and you throw in your ultimate early onto the game, you can't really deal with it. Also, you can cookie people out of Blood Right. If your teammates about to get Blood Righted, you can cookie them away. It's actually quite useful. You have a movement speed slow, so you can get on top of him. You have a stun. And if Bloodseeker tries to man up, you can even reduce his armor with your E. And so yeah, there's a lot of utility that I think SNAPFIRE is just good against Bloodseeker. Next up is Riki. This one makes a lot more sense, mainly for the reason that if you get Blood Righted or Ruptured, you don't really care. Obviously, don't get hit by the Blood Right, otherwise you really care. Riki does not want to get silenced for 6 seconds. Yes, Blood Right is 6 seconds at max. But you can dodge it easily, even in the laning stage. You simply have Tricks of the Trade or Blink Strike, you can't get hit. Even if you get Ruptured, you Tricks of the Trade to stall out, you can avoid spells. You know, when you get Ruptured, usually people will throw spells on top of you to force you to move, or just, you know, to kill you because you can't move. But Riki doesn't care, he can completely ignore it. Sure, you do have to be careful about Blink Striking, don't kill yourself, but Tricks of the Trade is a great option. And of course, you also have the Smoke Screen. Bloodseeker is obviously a melee hero. It is a hero that does not have a stun, so you can always get off your Smoke Screen. It is a hero that does not burst you, so you can always get off your Smoke Screen. And yeah, it's great utility. And finally is Medusa. If you rupture Medusa, who cares? She doesn't move anyway. It's like rupturing a grandpa. You think it's gonna do any damage to, you know, Grandpa James? No, he can't even move. It's not gonna do any damage. And therefore, all you have to do is just stand still as Medusa, and it's pretty good. Also in the laning stage, you know, if you do happen to lane against Blood, it's fine. You're gonna get farmed. You know, Bloodseeker can't pressure you too hard. He can't deny your creeps if you're not careful, but after all, you know, Bloodseeker, it shouldn't destroy you in the lane. It can put some pressure depending on the position for it, but all in all, you can man up. You don't care too much about getting silenced by Blood Right anyway. It's not the end of the world. As long as you see it coming, you can, you know, make sure you have your shield on, click the Stone Gaze even beforehand if it's worst case scenario, and move on from there. All right, next up we have Tiny. So Tiny in the position 4. This hero has been bursting heroes for a while now. Now, honestly, I do feel like Tiny is a bit overrated. I will be honest. I see a lot of people hyping up Tiny. They're like, this hero's always picked by pros, blah, 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 it's broken, blah, 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 it's broken, it does so much damage, broken. It sounds like me, kind of. But the thing is, the hero's win rates are really not too impressive. I actually haven't seen the win rates for the pro scene, so don't quote me on that. I'm not referring to the pro scene, I'm talking about pubs. They're just not that good. There's barely any brackets where Tiny is above 50%. If any, actually. And therefore, while I do think this hero is meta, if you understand its counters, you'll do alright. So here are a couple counters. First off is Undying. In the laning stage, if you pick Undying, Tiny will have a very bad start. And the thing about Tiny is, he kind of needs a good start. He needs to be able to kill the position 5. That's what he loves doing, picking on position 5s. But if you get decayed twice, and then you toss an Undying onto the creep wave, and he starts smacking your offlaner, it's not even that good of a trade. And therefore, you know, this matchup's just pretty tough for Tiny. Also, it's very hard to burst Undying in the mid game. After all, what does Tiny love doing? He loves bursting the supports. He's really good at it. Undying, you can if the Undying's really underfarmed, but if he gets his ulti off and sees you coming, it's very difficult. Also, he can soul rep teammates who get tossed combos, so you can save them in that regard. And Tiny hates Tombstone. Hates Tombstone. Core Tiny also despises Tombstone. It is so bad. You have no attack speed. You can't kill the zombies. You can't. You also can't kill the Tombstone. And therefore, Tiny is miserable against Tombstone. It is so bad. Next up is CK. In the laning stage, CK can stun you. He can go on you. He does enough damage to kill you. Most importantly, Tiny's usually pretty tanky in the early game, right, guys? CK can deal with it. He can actually burst you and keep you down, which allows you to actually kill the Tiny. Also, Tiny can't really burst CK too well. Sure, Avalanche is quite useful against Phantasm. It is. It stuns all the things. But then you have to use Avalanche to stun in an AoE, which kind of is meh. It's a bit meh. And finally is Puck. This one sounds weird, as technically it could go both ways. You know, after all, if Tiny finds the Puck, he can one-shot a lot of Pucks. But what I mean by this is actually sort of position 5 Puck. I really like position 5 Puck against Tiny for a couple of reasons. In the early game, Tiny is very tanky compared to a lot of supports, so he often just runs away from ganks and engagements, but with Coil, it's very hard for him to do that. That's number 1. And in the laning stage, number 2, it's hard for him to toss you, right? Also, you should take a point in Phase Shift and Waning Rift. And when you have all of this mobility, it's very difficult for Tiny to combo you like he usually would. Think about it, Tiny against Crystal Maiden, even Bane or AA. It's so easy for him to walk up and burst you down, but against Puck, he can't do that. And you right-click pretty hard at a pretty decent attack range, so all in all, Puck makes it very hard for Tiny to do anything, especially as a support. I think it's really good. And finally, we have WINDRANGER. WINDRANGER is countered by a couple heroes. I'm going over mostly supports here, just so you can counter her if you do have that option. First one is SD. I really like this one just because if you demonic purge ultimate the WINDRANGER, it constantly purges, therefore WINDRANGER cannot win run, right? And so she dies. And you do a lot of magical damage, which is great, right? So if WINDRANGER is walking into the fight, you can reduce her max HP by 40%, you can poison her, you can ulti her, and all of a sudden she's kind of just dead just to your damage. And most importantly, right, an underlooked portion of this matchup is the fact that if someone gets shackled, which is what WINDRANGER does. She tries to shackle one person, optimally 2 I guess, but usually 1. She shackles one person and tries to kill them. So, disrupting them will save them, prevent the WINDRANGER from going in, then you ulti her and she dies. Next up is Chen. Yes, Chen. Now why Chen? This one might seem weird. It's like, what does Chen do against Wind? After all, it's probably really hard to land Centaur stomps against WINDRANGER. Well, one thing you can do is take the troll nets. It's a good way of catching her if you happen to be in that matchup. You can take the Ice Ogre creeps to deal with her physical damage. But most importantly is a couple of factors. Number 1, you build a mech and Hand of God, and so you can save people. Similar to Shadow Demon, you can kite out the WINDRANGER ulti, and if you can kite WINDRANGER ulti, or her first attempt to burst someone, you can win the fight, because then you kite her out, her win run might run out, and she dies, right? She's very one and done, you know? She's very, very one and done often in fights, unless she's Giga Farm, then she can just keep running around and kiting and has low CDs later into the game. But nonetheless, Chen kites her out. And one really cool feature of Chen is if a WINDRANGER goes on a Chen, well, actually, let me phrase this differently. If a WINDRANGER goes on a CM, CM is dead. She is absolutely dead. But if WINDRANGER goes on a Chen, not only does he have a mech and a wand and maybe a Vlad's, right, because he can actually farm, and those are the items he buys, but he also has creeps. So even if you get shackled, you can run your centaurs around and actually protect yourself, which is really cool. And finally, we have CLOCKWERK. CLOCKWERK's good for very, very simple reasons. You do a lot of magic damage, you trap her in cogs. If she's going to pick off your teammate, you can obviously save them, right? You're very good at counter-initiating. WINDRANGER is a very fast hero. She splits up the map. She goes for pickoffs in the side lanes all the time. And therefore, if you can hookshot onto her, you can kill her, right? It allows your team to actually kill this pesky little WINDRANGER. And finally, you buy Blade Mail. You can. If a WINDRANGER's in the game, you hook, you battery assault, you blade mail. Really, there's not much she can do. And also, there is not much the enemy team can do to stop you if you get a Game Leap sub, because you're gonna have over thousands of guides by professional players that teach you about the game of Dota faster than anything you can find on YouTube. Don't believe me? Go sign up, try it out. If you don't like it, there's a refund policy. Go try it out, guys. I think you're gonna love it. And yeah, I hope to see you there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and peace. Before you leave, just want to say a quick message. If you're trying to get better at Dota or you just enjoyed that video, I know this is pretty general, and you're gonna hear this quite a bit from me, but I recommend you sign up to gameleap.com. Why? Because I put a lot of effort into the content over there, and generally the effort I do there is different from the content you're gonna see here on YouTube. It is different. In fact, I usually go a lot more in depth on topics or into niche topics that help you get to the next level even faster. Because on YouTube, I often have to keep it more mainstream, and that's even why I'm putting it at the end of this YouTube video. That's why this is at the end, because a lot of people just watch 5 minutes, they skip through just for like the dopamine spike. But if you are interested in actually getting better at Dota, I recommend you go to the description down below, get your discount right now by clicking the link, sign up, use the discount code that you're gonna see there, and I hope to see you there right now. So click it, and yeah, thanks for watching.